Real Talk TV for the best in conscious news and information, coming to your airways via internet and cable TV. Look for us on your social media platform Facebook and YouTube, a service of Real Talk Media in association with the Universal Collective Network.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Real Talk Powerful Show. Right now we are discussing justice denied, and of course I'm your hostess Khadija Asada Rashad. You have Brother Takuna Malana El Shabazz to my right, which would be your left, and you also have Reverend White out in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And we're going to go ahead and just each frame into the topic of justice denied, and we're going to go ahead and of course start with Reverend White. Reverend White, just tell us briefly about the murder of your son and where are we at right now.
I appreciate it, Sister Khadija, and also Brother Takuna. Thank you all for having me. Well, you know, on March the 3rd, 2014, he was killed in New Iberia. He was handcuffed behind his back in a police cruiser, and they claimed that he shot himself initially in the back, and then 6 months later in August, they said that he shot himself in the chest, according to the autopsy report. And so we've had the FBI investigate, Department of Justice and Louisiana State Police Criminal Investigation Division, and also the Iberia District Attorney's Office. Well, no one actually did an independent investigation. They just used the information provided to them by the Louisiana State Troopers Criminal Investigation Division, and we were seeking an independent investigation, and we're still asking for the Department of Justice, the FBI, to do an independent investigation and not just go on a review of the information that was provided. And so we know that Louis Alk in October was acquitted of the civil rights violations, but about 10 of those officers will face the penalty phase of their guilty pleas in March. And so our next phase is either to attempt to get it reopened, the case reopened, and have an independent investigator come and do an independent investigation of those facts. And also next in line has to be the civil trial, in which hopefully we can get the case reopened. Now,
you mentioned something in Louis Alko case. You stated that 10 of the officers were found guilty, and Alko himself was found innocent?
That's correct. He was acquitted of those charges in October. Again, they portrayed those officers that pled guilty as doing it, turning on Alko and providing the facts and information that they provided. You know, it just couldn't come, him being at the top, claiming that he didn't know. You know, there's no way that you could be sitting at the top and not know what's going on. You know, and so therefore we were disappointed, but you can see that I attended a couple of days, and you know, you can see that the jurors wasn't even paying any attention to the information that was being presented.
Brother Takuna, now you have attended rallies on behalf of police brutality, police misconduct throughout the years, and what is your take on the incident with Reverend White losing his son being murdered in that fashion?
Well, first of all, I think that we need to appreciate the tenacity,
yes,
the courage of Reverend White and his family,
yes,
for not giving up.
that's right.
They are certainly dealing with a system that has no well intent for us to achieve justice, and all of the meetings and the rallies,
yes,
that I've attended have actually shown the consistency in hiding the facts, stalling, and creating obstacles that should not be there for Mr. Reverend White and his family to achieve justice for their sons, for his son being murdered by the police department. Now, we have to understand clearly, for black people, we have to understand, by and large, we have what is called procedural justice. We don't have any real justice.
yes.
We are allowed to go through a procedure, And if you don't have the money, if you don't have the political connection, if you don't have the weight to move those that are in place, then your procedure comes to a standstill, and there is no justice. By all accounts, if Mr. Acker is to believe that he was unknowing of all of the activities taking place in the police department, then he should have been dismissed just on the basis of being incompetent.
Yes.
How are you going to have 9 to 10 officers commit to the kind of illegal activities that have been verified and been testified to, and the head of the department is not chastised, if for nothing else, being incompetent, and he should be out of that position? So it goes to show that Reverend White and his family still have a tremendous amount of illegal obstacles that they're going to have to jump. Now, also too, Reverend White right now and his family is trying to get his son's case reopened. Now, why is that? Because of the procedure. When you look at what took place with the coroner and the illegal and questionable activities around that, his case had to be closed because of a procedure that he could not overcome in the court. Because his son has been legally classified as a suicide because they ignore the facts. So now there has to be procedures that needs to be successfully overcome in order for him to get recognition on record that some violation within the police department occurred that caused the death of his son. So we need to understand that clearly.
Yes.
When we talk about things like that, we better understand there's a difference between justice and procedural justice.
Yes, and the picture that the producer, Brother Jay, just placed up on the air, that's the news article that came out of the New York Times, and the New York Times is a worldwide distributor. And of course, Reverend White, you want to explain a little bit of the article? Nathaniel Rich is the writer, and of course he done a really, really good job.
Yes, he did, and we're really appreciative of the New York Times. Also, it will be coming out in the Times Magazine at the end of the month. It ran in the New York Times this week, and it will be in the New York Times magazine itself. And as you said, that's again, we're attempting to get the national coverage. And a part of that is that he did, Nathaniel Rich, they came down and they did a full investigation. And I mean, they talked to everybody, participated, they stayed around, and you know, and they fact-checked. That was one of the things. Like you said, they fact-checked everything that we said, you know, and verified it, and which was a wonderful thing, you know. And we're so grateful to it, and that you all, Sister Khadijah and Brother Jay and Brother Takuna, all that supported us to keep it going. And so, and like I said, it took them some months. As they said, they were going to be thorough with it. It did take them some months. They even talked about, you know, discrepancies. They seen the discrepancies in which we've seen, and hopefully, as Brother Takuna alluded to, is that it's the procedure part that we must overcome. And they know that if you have a lack of funding, economically based, you can't do it. And so, therefore, the political clout, which is Louis Alcott, as he said, considered himself king of the hill. Yes. So, you know, we have to overcome that as well, because he's the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the parish. And so therefore, but in the article, it went from when we started all the way to where we are right now.
Yes.
And it is an incredible article. And I challenge everybody to go on the New York Times website and read.
Yes, yes, indeed. And of course, some of the things that they did point out in the articles was like some of the things that Ackle had instructed his employees to do. Like when you had Michael Jones, who was found beaten to death by 2 of his officers. He was hog-tied. And I do have the picture. He was hog-tied. I mean, these 2, they were some wrestlers. What their names were?
Wesley Hayes.
Yes.
Bayou Boys.
Yeah.
The Bayou Boys. I mean, it was easy to collaborate on all of the evidence that was given to Nathaniel Rich, which he was able to do a thorough investigation on, and still, you know, nothing has been done. I mean, even though they may have. The only reason they could have done what they were able to do was to have permission from the big dog himself, Alco himself.
Right. As you said, that's true because he's the one leading the way. And like I said, as I attended listen to some of the testimonies in that trial with
Yes.
Como, those officers, Como,
Yes.
and those, that they said he one lived across the street from him. That's how he got hired, and then so above a Savoy. The beating of those individuals at the police station, handcuffing them. I mean, we looked at them, give the description of how they put the dogs on them, how Louis Arco told them that in New Iberia, one day of the week that you go into the West End and you clean the streets and they use the N-word. I mean, they talked about how he told them as a state trooper how he got away with crime. And that's what he was expecting them to do the same thing. So, and they did. They went out and did it, Then he got mad at the three that came in the West End and they beat down the guy, what he said, he got upset with him because they ran away and got caught. See, that was the thing. He wasn't worried about the injury to the individual that was in the West End. He was worried about his officers getting away and getting caught. It was just so many instances of listening at how, and then when the prosecutor asked him, well, about how many black people do you think you abused, and almost all of them to a T would say, I can't remember. So many, I cannot remember, and like I said, the courtroom wasn't packed, that's why they moved it, that was another reason. It should have been held right here locally where all the crimes and violations were committed.
That's right.
So see, that's when you get a jury of your peers, not away from here because they don't know anything about what was going on in this area.
And Brother Takuna, when Sheriff Alco listed that he wanted to shoot a federal judge in the
right between his eyes.
Right between the eyes. If you or I had said that, we would have probably been locked up without bond for years. But then Sheriff Alco could say that and get away with that, and it just, it just draw you to say that, okay, we gotta believe in the system that can't even believe in itself.
Well, sister, this is a lesson again. It's not the first lesson. It's one of many lessons that we've had in reference to the police department and what kind of justice that actually comes from the police department that we have not yet, learned, and that you're dealing with a political system and political process. And even though it was blatant that there had to have been some questionable circumstances to occur to claim that a young man who is handcuffed behind his back shot himself in the chest, and you search him and you can find a minute amount of marijuana on him, and you did not find a gun. That speaks to a blatant effort on the police department to obstruct justice, to deny justice. The attitude that Alco had in reference to pointing out he was going to shoot the judge between the eye. I mean, wait a minute now. That happened long before Trump took office, right?
Yes.
But don't we see the same kind of attitude in the atmosphere that is being right now promoted by the Trump administration? Yes. So if we think we caught hell then, watch the attitude of police officers and other administrative forces that are to control or monitor our destiny. You will see that attitude repeat itself. So Alco is just part of a cultural response that comes from the illegality, the oppressive conditions that exist in the police department for black people.
And going with that, Brother Takuna, it goes even further than the police department because, there's not the sheriff's department. When we look at a conflict theory, Karl Marx's conflict theory, where the oppressor wants to keep you oppressed because he wants to control all the money. He wants to control all the goods. As long as he can do that and keep you in a certain area, then it works well for them, and that's how it is with Louis Arco. Look at the jail. Remember they come down there and he took the jail and they expanded, but they didn't make any more bed space. What he did was put all those people in there, put them in that cage. As I said, he wanted to be the next sheriff to the one in in Arizona to get away with it, put them in pink jumpsuits.
Yes.
Pink underwear and all this kind of stuff, to not only further shame or humiliate you, but to keep you on down, So, and the same thing, that's why I said with my son's case, they got many instances
That's
where
right.
those police officers went in there and then did and beat down people for no reason at all,
right.
just for looking at them. And then they even told the officers came and said if you ran from them, they would hit you an extra time or beat you down even more just for running.
Yes, sir. Yes, and, caller? Okay, caller, you have a question or comment?
Great panel. Good evening to you, Reverend White. Sister, and Brother Takuni, you speak to this, and I like to add a lot of different insights into these programs that you do. Is it me, or is it something we imagine? We can't just lay the blame at everyone, just say Sarah Apple. We could put him as a person on top and just lay the blame at his feet and say, well, we got to get him. We can't just lay the blame at Trump. But guess what? There were people who elected these individuals in the office. What is at play here? And Brother Dakota, I know you would agree with me. What is at play is white supremacy. And white supremacy, a lot of this word is a very strong word to other people. It's not strong to people like you, Sister Khadijah, Reverend White, and Brother Dakota, but it's strong for a lot of our own people. White supremacy is at play because guess what? If you look at Apple, long as Apple was abusing the black community, white folks and Negroes, and I use the word term loosely, were happy with Apple. There was never any type of outcry from the politicians in North Africa, black or white. There was never no type of outcry from the authorities across the state. Granted that he had up to 10 officers, plus more that they didn't talk about, who talked about how Apple ran the department. Long as Apple was abusing the black community, they viewed him as a hero. Now that's translating to what's going on with this election with Trump. Long as Trump is abusing people of color around the globe and here in America, they are happy with that. That's people, white supremacy elected Trump. It's nothing, there's nothing to do with jobs and all of this stuff. That's a bunch of malarkey. It has to do with who oppresses black folks and people of color more. Look at Higgins, who put together the video that talked about rounding up black males and putting them in jail. What happened? Someone who barely could say 2 English words was elected to be a United States congressman from this district. Granted that people historically have elected people who go out and promote the oil industry and promote commerce and so forth. They elected someone who wants to oppress and publicly saying he wants to oppress black folks in so many words. So this is the pattern. And black folks and people of conscience are fierce defeated. So I just like to throw that at. I know that a lot of Reverend White, but in order for justice to get enabled instead of justice denied, we're going to have to deal with that aspect. So I'd like Brother Dakuna to comment on that. Thank you so much, my brother.
Yes. Well, thank you for the caller, for the question, caller. You know, when we look at Reverend White's challenge surrounding his son's murder, whether you are the attorney, whether you are a helper in the rallies, whether you are a writer or promoter with the media, whether it be radio or television, if you want to do a real and just job
Yes.
to the real circumstances that took place around the killing in New Iberia with his son, and when you deal with the police department, you deal with the political apparatus that surrounds the police department, if you don't first study and understand the nature and the system of white supremacy, it's impossible for you to understand. It's impossible for you to come to a rational, reasonable, and just conclusion as to even the possibilities of what may have occurred. So when you block out the tentacles of white supremacy, then you eliminate the real grassroots corruption that actually is manifesting itself now. And even with white supremacy, even if you have the most sincere attorney, if you have the most sincere law enforcement, if you have the most sincere community worker that is allowed to have some aspect within the system to address the issue, if they appeal to the system as it is, that is functioning under white supremacy, they will not be able to do good even if they want to do good, because they will come under the forces and the tentacles of white supremacy, and they will have to go according to the dictates of white supremacy. So even a good cop can't be a good cop in a white racist system. A good lawyer can't be a good lawyer in a white racist system. A good community activist person who submits and think that he wants to do good. And let's love everybody first before we start dealing with the issue of injustice. Then that's a system, that's a person that doesn't understand the system of white supremacy. And therefore, even though the intent may be good, the action may be just as destructive or neutralized or non-actionable in terms of what we can do next. Because it's the system of white supremacy that creates the barriers, that creates the dictates in terms of our behavior. So if we don't understand as a people that white supremacy affects us all, from the time we get up in the morning till the time we go to bed at night. It determines what we eat, what we dress, where we go, how we deal with things. How do you think it's not going to impact us in terms of the justice system? Look at, is it the justice system, as your question earlier, that allow Ackle to say with confidence, I'll shoot the judge right between the eye. Why? Because he knows that he's in a position with the system of white supremacy that will protect him. But let you say it. Let you say it. Let me say it.
Yeah.
You see, let us just say it in jest and see what happens to us. You see, we see the system of white supremacy even on the national level. One white man calls President Obama a liar, nothing happens. You whisper something about Trump and the system comes down on you. You see, we have to understand that the system of white supremacy is not no fantasy concept. It is a real functional and dysfunctional concept when it comes to justice. You see, and if we don't as a people, get hold of this whole concept of white supremacy, we can't address anything effectively. Even the last show I was on in terms of dealing with the Cajun issue, and you spoke to it. As long as black people are in a position to see themselves less than powerful, less than as men, less than as women, then the system of white supremacy controls us. You see, so when you deal with issues like colonialism, when you deal with issues like black pride, black history, black culture, that means if I can accept and absorb that, I'm interested in what happened to your son. You see, I'm interested in what's happening in the Middle East. I'm interested in what's happening, in Dubai and what is happening in Israel and Egypt and all of these places. I'm interested because there's a connection. But if I am made to think and believe that the system of white supremacy in my teaching and understanding and my interpretation of my worldview has me safe, then I have no interest. I don't want you coming to me with the issues of your son. You get over it. God's will was at work. You see, this is what white supremacy feeds us. So, therefore, again, I said to the listening and the viewing audience, you cannot imagine how much we must give the white family credit for the tenacity of not giving up, because they are against tremendous odds. And the fact that this particular newspaper, this particular national media, has decided to listen and move on truth is a tremendous boost and a testimony to God's will in terms of working with you and your family, that you should never give up your righteous position and interpretation as you see. That means you are winning and battling against white supremacy, and you're winning.
That Brother Chakuna said that brings me that as we continue to look at the struggle, And I must say it was a struggle because, as I said, you know, we're aware of what I'm up against. You know, that's the thing. But I'm not afraid because even before then, you know, down in New Iberia and the atmosphere, you know, we was Sister Khadijah, you know, we can all attest to. We was folks were afraid to come forward, even though they was abused, even they was, like I said, well, what more can happen to me? There's not, you know, if I'm gonna give my life, I'm gonna give it for something meaningful, and not just my son, but it's going on nationwide. And so therefore, Brother Takuna said, well, I can't just look at this in a regional aspect. You know, we have to see this as worldwide. It's not just in Louisiana. It's all over the place. And we have to see it. Ferguson. It happened in Ferguson. It was in California. It was in New York. It was in Florida. It's all over the place. But yet and still, you know, we as a people have to come together because the only way we're going to do it, we got to be united. And, you know, therefore, and when we look at what's at the top, and we see that, and I keep on about it, as I said, there's no racism involved. It is. All you have to do is look at the jails. Who's in the jail?
Yeah.
You know, a modern day way of oppressing you. As you go there, and then you come out with a felony where you don't get into job training, you got to come back out with who's going to hire you. You know, so it's the same thing. So just keep quiet, as it was saying in the beginning. Let it go. You know, you're a man of God, and God's will gonna be done. Well, the thing about God's will is that we're gonna be in it. If I'm gonna be in it, then I need to step out. You know, so I'm gonna step out. I'm gonna do what I have to do. I'm gonna say it because I'm not afraid. It doesn't matter who's sitting at the top. Because the thing is that nothing can happen to me that unless I submit. If I be submissive, and I guess that's why a lot of times we see that white individuals are sitting at the top. They want docile black people. You know, that's not me. You know, that's why I said, you know, I didn't raise my children to be that way. That's because right. If you feel a certain way, speak the truth. You know, speak truth to power, but make sure that when you come there, you got facts. You know, and as I said, that's what we face. Every time we turn around, the obstacles when we were doing the protest, well, they didn't put it on a day. They didn't know this was happening. They know it. You know, the schedule for the city of New Iberia, you know, it's set a whole year in advance. We're aware of that. They know exactly what is going on. And we're still facing obstacles. As you said, now it's even more so because as executive order been signed by President now Trump, is that he's already stood up there and told, well, I'm with the boys in blue. Y'all been down long enough on all this stuff, but what about us that been victimized by those boys in blue? And those women in blue.
That's right. And let me say, not just because you know we're on TV, because this is my language. This is how I talk on the telephone. This is how I talk at a protest. A lot of them are some spineless vertebrates. They are some cowards. What person in a uniform gonna go ahead and kill a young man? You know, shoot him with handcuffs on. You know, it don't make any sense. And then from the get-go. There were red flags, Reverend White, and you picked up on it right then and there because where they said your son was killed at, I mean, he was at the store. He was supposed to be on some type of surveillance camera. From the surveillance camera, the time that the call came in for the ambulance was at a different location, you know, and then from what time did y'all bring him to the jail? All of those was just red flags, and you have remained persistent with the same story every time, day in or day out.
Yes,
And you know what needs to be pointed out here, because of the killing of your son, because of the Sterling killing, because of the killing of black men by police officers across America, some states now in Louisiana has initiated this. Now they have what is called the Blue Lives Matter law. This is white supremacy at work. Yes, so you go back and you create legislation to protect your evil doing. You see, so now they say it was misrepresented that the Blue Lives Matter law doesn't mean that you if you resist a police officer that you can be charged with a hate crime. Well, listen, was that a mistake? Was that misinformation? That was put out there. Then they try to correct it when it was challenged. But what it does says is this, is that there is a law that protects police officers even in the midst of them doing wrong. You can't question them, you can't do anything. Now, this is white supremacy. This is what you're fighting against. This is what I'm fighting against. This is what every black person is fighting against, whether we understand it or not. Now, what they also have on their side, Reverend White, you know, is the fact that we have in our community forces that should automatically be behind you or not.
Yes.
And I'm saying this candidly.
That's true.
You know, the black churches are masquerading as spiritual leaders in our community. Whenever there's going to be a killing with black on black, you know, one brother killing another brother, we want to give vigils in every denomination coming up there, you know, trying to calm us down from us. Don't get upset, calm, because let's calm the natives. But whenever there's a killing between a cop and a black person, these ministers are not showing up because they fear the wrath of their slave master. So therefore, I see the inconsistency. If every black preacher who tells you that you should believe in God and follow God, if they would act in accordance to the truth of the words that they use, they should be there with you. But these are the kinds of divisions that we have. So again, I say, you know, that your struggle has always been uphill, but you have never, ever given up. You have never changed your story. You have never compromised the incident as you know them to be, as factual, have ever changed. So now we have a situation where we have interest into this national newspaper that's going to bring your truth about. It is imperative that the viewing audience understand this. Now, if we continue to meet in churches who have already submitted to white supremacy, that's a waste of time, Reverend White. If we continue to submit to so-called leaders that have submit to white supremacy, then we're wasting time. If we continue to organize with people who are inundated with fear of white people, you're wasting your time. Because in God's language, fear robs you of the creative ability to do what's right. You see? And when we understand that, then our decision making is going to be different. So again, you know, your son and the circumstances surrounding your son, as they would say, you know, in the cliche, to us who know, it's a no-brainer. So why wasn't it so clearly seen by the people who claim to represent justice and are receiving financial funds in order to protect and serve? You're dealing with something other than just your local police department in New Iberia.
Yes, and he said that one other interesting fact, that after the Department of Justice came in and investigated, as well as the FBI, when they did their part of the investigation, they had Stacey Vanderwater. I don't know if that name rings a bell, but she had changed her name. She was one of the ones they called a photographer. After we gave the information to the Department of Justice and the FBI, they said they went back, talked to Louis Ark and asked her about who she was, because see, we had gained some information that she was on the scene and she was acting as an investigator, but she wasn't qualified, that she was sleeping with somebody at the top. Well, you know, they came back, and after that, so they told us, well, we went and talked to Louis Ark. Louis Ark said that she was an investigator. Well, right under my nose, didn't even think about it, right? My son's property. When I went and looked at the bag, my son's property, her name was signed as a crime scene investigator. Her name is on it. See, but he gonna tell us, so, you know, and then we tell them FBI, well, you guess what, you know, they not giving ear to it, but it's just as plain as day, you know, well, he lied to the federal officials. See, he lied to them when he said that she was a photographer, when clear as day, I have it, and I told them I have it under my possession, that her name is signed on there. See, she signed it, saying when they did the transfer of his personal belongings from Iberia Parish Sheriff's Department to the Louisiana State Police Criminal Investigation Division, it was her name. Her initials signed. Her name is signed, and she signed it as a crime scene investigator, not as a photographer.
And and Reverend White, also, it just goes to show you that even at the smallest of level of corruption within Iberia Parish, your son had almost, is it $1,500?
$1,400 on his person. That's correct.
Okay.
And when I went to the jail,
okay,
first thing they told me, well, actually when I went to the jail, see, that was confusing again.
yes,
They said immediately, when you look at the article, immediately said the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Department turned it over to the Louisiana State Police, right? Well, I had to go pick up my son's possession from two different places. So if it was all turned over to the Louisiana State Troopers, then why would I pick it up? I only picked up his watch, his earring, and his cross from them. His wallet, his money, and the so-called cigarillos that he had, they were at the jail on Broken Arrow Road. So when I go out to Broken Arrow Road,
Right.
I go to pick up his possession. Well, she comes out, the individual comes out and give me a package and open the package. Well, let me clear that up. The package was already open.
Okay.
And as she put all the stuff in thing, so in the packet it had $91 and some change. And I counted that $91. I said, no ma'am, my son had more money than that. I would go to call the attorney. She said, hold on. So she took all the items back.
Right.
Went to the back.
Went to the back.
Come back, brought the wallet and said, oh, he had two $100 bills in his wallet. And I said, oh no ma'am, you're not gonna put that one on me because my son did not carry money in his wallet. He carried his money in his front pocket. And if they look at it, it's just in part of that video. You see when the officer go down in his pocket, you can see the officer go in my son's pocket, pull up the money, what they so-called was marijuana. Which I couldn't see that, but that's what they're saying. You know, but so again, all this that happened, and she took everything back. And, you know, they would not let me have that evidence, the bag in which it came in. Like I got the one from her, I asked her for it, and she told me no.
And so the rest of his money you never received.
$291 is all we have. And like I said, I spoke to him that Sunday morning. He was getting ready to buy a vehicle. And as you look at the New York Times story, it shows, like I said, he fact-checked, found out he was going to buy the vehicle. Like I told him, it was a transmission issue. I said, well, son, don't buy that vehicle unless they can get you a warranty. Let them take it, get it fixed, and get you a warranty, bring it back, then you buy it. And if that doesn't happen, don't worry about it. So I knew exactly. Then he was getting ready to put a down payment on an apartment.
Yes.
So see, I knew what he had because, as I said, I talked to him that morning. We talked that morning and to kind of steer him in the right direction, and that's what he did. He would call me, like I said, he would call me every night. That's how he was. He would call me every night, you know, and we would talk to myself or his mother, but he would definitely call me every night. And so that's how I knew what was going on. So when they said that he shot himself in the back, or the statement that they put on there, that he said, I'm gone now, tell my family I love them, I'm gone now, you know.
Right.
My dad, you know, like I told him, that's not even a language my son would use in that fashion. I
That's
did
right.
not tell my family I'm gone now because he knew he had support.
That's right.
You know, he was in the church, raised in the church, and he knew that against all religious beliefs. That was totally against all religious beliefs. So that was one thing that, like I said, stood out the first time when they said suicide. That was kind of the thing that stood out. And then as I look at what the officer said, Justin Ortiz, you know, had met him earlier. And another interesting fact with that is that if you look at him, he had made over 486 stops. This is Justin Ortiz, 486 stops in a 3-month period. You know, so I'm trying to see, well, when did he go home?
Yeah.
You know, when did he go home? 486. And so he made the statement again that he remembered my son, accordingly that he remembered my son, but didn't really quite know what it was about. You know, so they had to run in with him earlier. See, so that's why I said, and then for them to sit that high and say, we know it there. Louis Argo at the trial, what got me, he chewing tobacco, he dipping. He dipping in the courtroom. Dipping in the courtroom and spitting in a styrofoam cup. I looked at the attorney and I told my attorney, I said, you see that? Now that's disrespectful.
Yes, it
That's
is.
disrespectful. He dipping in the courtroom and spitting in a styrofoam cup. Like I said, looking just like he's sitting in his office, right back in the chair.
And Reverend White, what is it that you would say to the 1,000 of listening audience that's viewing the show? What type of help can they give you in the quest for semi-justice in the murder of your son?
As we need now, we need individuals to voice it and stand by support. We need some voices to go forward. And as we ask the Department of Justice and FBI to reopen this case, we want an independent investigation. We want to sound that board, an independent investigation. We want an independent medical examiner. That's what we want to examine, not that, you know, if we have to get my son's body back up, but that's what we have to push for. We don't want them to look at that. We want them to look at all the evidence, not review the evidence. We want them to see the evidence, you know, so and that's another quick thing. That's why we need them. We need everybody to come forward. We need every voice you know, to come from all over the place. As I said, we need the viewing audience to come forward. We know those of us to really be motivated, to let the Department of Justice know and the FBI know. Well, we're not going anywhere. You know, and it could be as my son now, but it could be anybody's son, because remember, he's still sitting there.
That's right.
And he feels he's gotten away, and it's still happening, because remember, there's been a death lately that was in the jail. Not that far off, not that, what, month or 2 months ago?
Yes.
Another one right there in the jail, you know, under strange circumstances. So, again, we need your voices.
Yes. And the manner in which your voice can be expressed does not have to be in a forum like this.
Right.
It does not have to be in mainstream radio or television. Your voice can be expressed now through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. When you get that information, take it and spread it out. The only way that white folks have always been able to win against us when we're on the side of right is either to deny access to the truth, keep us on the plantation, and keep us ignorant of our surroundings. But once the facts are gathered, and the masses of people understand the details of what you're dealing with in New Iberia, that's the kind of voice that can create the kind of outcry that can bring about some results. A lot of folks out there who I believe have a sense of fairness and justice and are skilled, Reverend White, but perhaps do not know or not know the details of what the truth is. Because this severe propaganda machine that is in the hands of white supremacists in most cases, they begin to set the narrative for us in our community and every time there's an incident. So we must utilize those independent sources and advocate to our people. Use your Facebook skills. Use your Instagram skills. Use all these independent media once you can get this information and spread it out. Just like you were able to get that one person to investigate, check the facts, and they come up with an intelligent conclusion. Something's wrong here.
And
I believe there is a consistency of mindset out there, but we need to connect the dots.
And another thing, when you look at overall, of those 11 officers that pleaded guilty for crimes that they've done, you had the district attorney who had to go back and release hundreds of people that had been convicted by these same officers for the same reason, whereas they lied, they planted drugs, they planted evidence. 11 of those officers the district attorney had to release hundreds of people that was convicted of a crime behind these 11 officers. So if these 11 officers did this, you know they had ACL approval of doing it from the get-go.
And if your son had not been cleverly and illegally and viciously labeled as a suicide, your son's case would have had to been investigated and looked at again. But that's why the effort is to keep it identified as a suicide, because it limits your possibilities. So I understand the effort. Black folks who are listening, and any interested person who are listening and viewing this particular show, the information that Reverend White has, reveals the facts. Read the article, get the information, spread the word. Anything can happen when you're persistent enough and you're on the right side. You see, so the force of righteousness, I believe in the long run, is greater than the force of unrighteousness. But the force of righteousness has to be buttressed by a collective energy of righteous thinking and righteous doing people.
Right, and as you were saying, Sister Khadija brought back to mind those 11 officers said what had happened. They kept giving accounts of how they did individuals, and so, and when I seen my son, because remember when they gave me they said we could, they limited on who could go back there. Only one person could go back there. I could only see him from the neck up, and the first thing I seen when I seen my son's body was there was the mark from the top of the left, above his left eyebrow all the way down to the past his jawbone. and below that, then his eye socket. His eye actually was like a butt of a shotgun. It was turned in toward the left. His left eye was looking toward the right, and yet it's still, as I said, and it was just, and to see that his lips and stuff had been swollen, and the first thing they saying was, they looking at each other and they were telling me, well, ask the state police. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what happened? Well, no one said. So then the state police said, well, no, you have to ask the coroner. The coroner said it was under investigation by them. And as you said, and here we see them passing the buck. No one wants to give us the truth, and we're still in search for the truth, and it's so disturbing. So again, as I said, for all those out there listening, that's what we're on a quest for justice, and not only justice because we have the facts. We understand what the facts are because you have that many people saying that was going on in that department. It was going on in that department because then we got some individuals that was on the other end of it that are still afraid to come out because why? He's still sitting in the driver's seat. And so that's why we need people to stand forward, come forward, and give life to meaning. And that would be a life, that'd be your life giving it to meaning because guess what? Put it out there in the open. You put it out there in the open, you expose them, and then everybody can see. So we're calling on those individuals again that have had the same situation happen with officers slapped, the officers beat you, they kick you, whatever those things. Come forward. Let's be truthful about it, because the thing is that we know it's out there, we just don't have enough people to come forward saying it.
Mm-hmm. And really, when you have hundreds of people that were released behind these 11 officers, that's like a statement in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone that's viewing the program and y'all would like to reach Reverend White, what number would you like to give?
So my number is 318-730-9757. Again, that is 318-730-9757. Also, there's a Twitter, Justice for Victor White, Instagram, Justice for Victor White. Also, we have the website, Facebook, Justice for Victor White 3rd is the website. Go on the website. Also on Facebook is Justice for Victor White. We're there. So as you heard Brother Jacuna go out there, what we could do is we could put it out there. Let us keep your friends, my friends, get your friends and put it out there. And let's just go from the Twitter, Instagram. We got Facebook. Some of your, whatever media source that you have, let's use it. Let's put it out there. We appreciate all the support so far, but we know that we still got a long way to go.
And brother, the only way that they defeat us is that if we give up.
Yes.
This has always been the plight for liberation for black people. I was on a program earlier, and we were talking about the Cajun issue. I've been dealing with the Cajun issue for 25, 30 years. That Cajun issue is still as live today as the day when we started. You see? And white folks are the system of white supremacy chooses to ignore because they want you to run out of resources. They want you to get tired. They want you to lose your persistence. That's what they're trying to do with your son. But because of the rash killing of black people across America, we're not talking about just your son. We're talking about an attitude, a mentality toward young black men that are feared and hated by a system. And if we don't deal with Reverend White, a son in this community and the New Iberia community, then we cannot connect to the brothers and sisters that are losing their lives across America because of the same mentality, the same disrespect, the same devaluing of black life. And if we can't make that connection here, then we can't make that connection in Baton Rouge. We can't make that connection, nowhere else where we have brothers and sisters that are being killed by the police officers and getting paid for it. You see? And when they claim they do it out of impulse, or on impulse, and they really didn't mean to do it, but it's out of impulse, it also speaks to a condition of the mind of the police officer. Yeah. That means they already have inbred in them some hatred for black people. And some of them, that hatred comes out of the spur of the moment, because there is no such thing as you going to shoot a person in the back, like in Florida, who's running away from you and claim that your life was in danger if it was not driven by, first of all, hatred for black people, because there is no danger there. You see? So what was the mindset of the police officers who stopped your son? They were just angry at another young black man in the New Iberia area, and New Iberia, you better wake up.
Yes.
You see,
Yeah.
because we're talking about the black life that's lost that we know about. What about the black lives that have been lost in the past that we don't know about? What about the mysterious death in the St. Martinville jails and the Lafayette jails and
Yes.
jails across America
That's
where
true.
black people are dying, mysteriously? So these, your age group, they got these young people today, they're not taking that mess. And white supremacy fears that. You see? So that means there's a target on our young black men's back. And now the young black women are rising up as well. So there's a double jeopardy, that they see that they need to take care of. And believe me, well-intended people in a white supremacist environment can't do the right thing anyway.
Yeah, as you said, one point about that, even with those officers, as you said, within the system, the system was already stacked up against us, and then here you going up against it, and they're talking about, well, all of them weren't bad cops, but if you're a good testify against because the blue wall of silence, so therefore you ostracized, this thing happened, that, but regardless, you ought to stand for what's right regardless. Whatever's right, stand for it, because that's what they're there to protect and serve. And and I have a background in criminal justice, but my thing is that, like I said, they were friends. I had friends. We used to ride to school together. Did anger management with some of them. So.
Yeah.
So I understand the culture, but that's why I knew that wasn't a part of me, because if you do wrong, I'll call you out on your wrongdoing. And I would like that to happen to me too, that if I would do wrong, call me out on my wrongdoing. But we see it that there's a system, and you go up against a system, you're going to lose, because that system is not here to be broken. But I guarantee you, like I said though, but if we continue to stand up, fight that system, right, and you can tear it down piece by piece, and eventually the whole wall going to crumble down.
And of course, this is a live segment. The telephone number is 337-366-8950. You will be able to see the re-airs at later dates. Just call in to AOC to check and see. And of course, if you need to reach Reverend White telephone number is 318-730-9757. And of course, like Brother Takuna mentioned, Facebook, Twitter, please let it be known about our continued fight for justice. In closing, Brother Takuna, what would you like to say?
I would like to again remind the viewing audience that this is not a single incident. Let's rally behind the energy of the white family and pursue justice. Pursue justice without fear. Pursue justice based on facts. Pursue justice with the vigor in which you would be protecting your son or your daughter. And I believe that, again, righteousness has a greater force than righteousness. But we have to feed the desires of righteousness for it to grow.
Reverend White.
Yes, again, I thank you all for the platform today, Brother Jason, Khadijah, and Brother Takuna. As I said again, I want to encourage everybody to go on Facebook and get on Twitter, to go out there, Snapchat. I want you to get out there and let's push it out and keep it alive, because I need your help and need your support. I thank you all for supporting us, but there's some work we still need to be done.
And of course, in closing, I will say that Justin Ortiz and his partner, they were the one that killed your son, and they got to be less of a human being than to kill an innocent child with handcuffs on. And you know how to reach me. You know where I'm located at, and that's in closing. I want to thank you all, of course, for this powerful production.
Yes. My website, if you choose to reach me, is www.ccbe.weebly.com. I am the president of Conscious Community of Black Elders and the author of the book Black I Am, Cajun Creole I Am Not.
Yes, indeed. And please find it in your heart to try to show support to the white family. Please find it in your heart, because we all are affected by the wrongs of some of the people that we put into power, taxpaying citizens.
Yeah. And just know, where there's the absence of justice, the presence of peace is always negated by natural law. We must always seek justice, but we can't seek justice on the premise of injustice.
That's right. And crooked cops, crooked anybody, we need to call them out, because they the one that put havoc on our community, and they have protection.